Okay, let's do this. I've been thinking about doing this video for at least 2 years, but I always postpone because I thought if you want to do it right, you have to mention a lot of things and it requires big preparation. But right now, in the next 2 or 3 hours, there will be nobody in the house. So I just spontaneously decided I'm just gonna sit down, I'm gonna talk slow, and I'm just gonna say everything I wanna say, however long it takes. So if you don't have 30 minutes to watch this video, please don't start it. You will just get irritated. I'm not well prepared. I will not be talking fast and organized, and I always go on tangents. But okay, here is me going. This thing, the understanding of what is a fast action rod, is honestly one of the several absolutely fantastic mysteries in fishing that up to this day, as I'm recording this video, I never resolved. I never figured how is it possible for something so simple and so obvious that virtually everyone gets it wrong. Virtually everyone. And I don't know who to blame about this. Definitely the biggest blame falls on the so-called, YouTube fishing experts. I think without experts, there would be very few confusions in the fishing understanding. But once the YouTube fishing experts get their interest about something gets aroused and they all jump and start explaining it, there is no telling what will happen with the explanation of this issue. Fishing YouTube experts, there's something like politics. Like, you cannot advance in politics. You can't make a career in politics if you're a good person, because you have to wade and live in a sewer. That's about politics. YouTube is something very similar. People who have the engineering and the physics understanding don't have the personality to sit in front of a camera and be captivating to millions of viewers. It's very unfortunate. I know there's people who understand these things. They just either don't have YouTube channels at all, or if they do, they sound boring and not appealing. And the people who manage to grab everyone's attention, the YouTubers, and surface to the top, there are other attributes that make you successful on YouTube, not understanding of physics or science. I think that's the reason once YouTube experts start to explain something, it's almost always wrong. It's not random like 50-50, some of them are right, some of them are wrong. I have had similar videos before this about circle hooks, how to tie a circle hook, why the tip of the circle hook is pointing the main wire on the first place. A lot of these issues weren't problems before YouTube experts started explaining them. Once YouTube experts explain something, just go Google it yourself. Google is a better source of, you will find engineering explanation on Google, not on YouTube. I watched, before I made this video, everything that I found when you type rod action on YouTube. Today is 11/22/2023. Keep in mind this timestamp. As of 11/22/2023, I did not see one video on YouTube with proper understanding and proper explanation of rod action. Not even one. People who you consider reputable with huge channels. I mean, they talk things that are so obviously incorrect. Like they will say in the first part of the expression one thing, and by the end they contradict themselves. They don't contradict physics, they contradict themselves. I can't help it. I will mention a couple of interesting examples here. There is this young guy, Fish the Moment, who is going and he's explaining everything and he tries to be scientific. Yet every time I watch him try to explain tackle or something technical, I'm not even listening the words. I can see by his body language that he doesn't feel comfortable and he tries to kind of go fast on top of it and not get too dirty with it. But he made a video explaining rod action and power, made simple. Look at him making rod power and rod action simple. He went to an actual rod manufacturer and he made a video, and the rod manufacturer explained correctly what rod action is. He went home after that. He couldn't help it. That wasn't enough. He wanted to make it better, to give you something extra from him. Went home, made a beautiful chart with the labels, and he did it exact opposite from what the manufacturer told him. He did it exact opposite. Then I read the comments, and this video got thousands of thumbs up. I don't know how many comments. Nobody protesting, not protesting, but nobody said, I think you got them wrong. Maybe somebody did and he deleted those comments. I'm gonna mention a few more names that said interesting stuff later. But right now, let's actually see the difference between a fast action rod and a slow action rod. And notice that in the entire fishing industry, slow action technically doesn't even exist. It exists theoretically, but I will give you money, find me a slow action rod. Vendors avoid the term, vendors in United States, not in Europe, not in Japan, but in United States, avoid the term slow when it comes to fishing like the plague. Nothing slow. Nobody will ever buy anything slow. So the actions, they say that you have fast action, you have extra fast action, for those of you who are extra good, extra fast. And then we have moderate, but we don't even have slow. Who is gonna buy a slow? How many slow action rods are you gonna sell in United States? Do you have the courage to release a rod with slow action or reel with slow gear ratio? Nobody will find such courage. Neither me. Not in the next 20 years. Unless enough people change their mind on this. But let's see, what is a fast action rod? What is a slow or moderate action rod? The definition that everybody gives, I don't know who made this definition. All the YouTubers, they start with giving the same basic definition, which I don't like, even though technically it's kind of, I don't see anything wrong with it, but only if you understand everything. If you understand everything, then you understand why the definition is like this. But I would rather use a different definition that is much simpler for people to understand and much simpler for them to make a decision. Usually the definition which all of them say in the first 30 seconds? They say, well, the action describes where the rod bends. You know, fast action rods and extra fast action rods, they bend mostly in the tip of the rod. This here is super ultralight Suare XR. They bend mostly in the tip of the rod. Look at this. Imagine you catch a fish and your rod bends like this. Okay, this is extra fast action rod. You can do 180 degrees with the first foot and a half of the rod, maybe even the first foot. This is extra fast action. So it's very simple to show. Okay, extra fast action bends mostly in the tip. Even if you have fish, you lift the rod with a bluegill, but it bends like this. Extra fast action. And then they say the moderate action, I don't want to go in too many details. Details are just distracting and confusing. Then they say the moderate action bends more in the middle. So the same bluegill we catch here, but the rod is bent like this. The two rods are of similar power, but one rod, let me touch at the same place. One rod bends only in the tip, one rod bends everywhere. So visually, everybody agrees on this definition. My personal and preferred description of action is this. In a, let's say moderate, let's not even talk about slow action rod, because if I say slow, some of you probably just get goosebumps. Just the word slow, you can't even finish the video. I don't even want to watch slow. My preferred definition is this. When you in a moderate action rod, the relative stiffness of the tip of the rod and the rest of the rod is the same. In other words, the stiffness of the blank is similar to the stiffness of the tip. So if the blank is stiff and the tip is stiff, that's a slow action or moderate action. If they're similarly stiff, that's a slow action. Okay. And the opposite is true for fast and extra fast action rods. The stiffness of the tip, when you have a fast action rod, all that it means is that the tip is much softer than the rest of the rod. That's all it means. You have very stiff blank from here to here, and then you have a soft tip glued on top of it. That's all it means. And then if you have extra fast action, you have stiff blank, perhaps even stiffer blank, and then you have extra soft tip. Look at this tip. This tip will load like this with a 1 gram jig. This is extra fast action. If I put on the same rod, stiff as it is, the tip from the other rod, the action becomes slower. That's all the action tells you. A relative stiffness. But yeah, this is my preferred explanation of things. It is about the relative stiffness of the rod. If they are the same stiffness, similar stiffness, slow action, moderate action, if the tip is softer than the rod, that's a fast action, and if the tip is much softer That's extra fast action. That's all there is. Now let's see why I think that all of these guys send very confusing information, and why are you wrong? Because all of the comments I get, like, hey, what rod do I need for Ned rigging or drop shotting or for sensitivity? Everybody says extra fast. Why extra fast? Because you want a stiff tip for sensitivity. How many of you would agree with that statement? All of you would agree with that statement. Because for some reason, while everybody agrees that fast action and extra fast action rods bend mostly in the tip, everybody agrees on that. There is no disagreement on that. When you tell them about Ned rig fishing and drop shotting, everybody says you need extra fast action for the stiff tip. Well, what happened with the soft tip? How can you get the tip? How can you get the tip to bend if it is stiff? This is extra fast action rod. Do you really want to Ned rig with a fast action rod? Do you want to jig? Do you want to drop shot with an extra fast with this tip? So this is the paradox. People agree on the bend curve, but the moment you tell them extra fast action, no, that's extra stiff tip, and you show them softer tip, oh, that's a more moderate action rod. That's a more moderate. Like, nobody has conflict in their brain. Well, hold on now. We said that it bends there for the extra fast action, bends there. Then we say for the stiff tip, extra fast. Well, how does this look like stiff tip to you? Which of the two rods, moderate action, Presso Air AGS, Suare XR extra fast action, which of the two rods have stiffer tip? I mean, this rod has much stiffer tip. Much stiffer tip. Now, I'm gonna go through why this is important now. Not important. Fishing is not important in the first place. Let's be clear. Fishing, to be honest with you, is not that important in the first place. But why this definition makes a difference of your understanding of the properties of the rod. If you agree, as you should, that extra fast action rod means extra soft tip, then this changes everything. Let's think about the Ned rig. Do you really want let's say I'm drop shotting with this, or I'm Ned rigging or whatever. I'm dragging something on the bottom and trying to feel the bottom. I have braid or ester, I'm trying to feel the bottom. Every time your weight snags a rock or a bump or something, instead of this vibration reaching all the way here to your hand and you feeling, every time you snag on a little rock or imperfection, this soft tip will bend. This tip will bend and it will absorb the feeling. It will kill sensitivity. It will kill sensitivity. Virtually everybody, don't tell me you don't. Virtually everybody agrees that the faster the rod, the more sensitive it is. Virtually, don't tell me you don't agree with that. How does extra soft tip help you with sensitivity? Think about this. Every time you get a bite and the fish pulls a little bit, instead of this pull hitting your arm, the tip will bend and it will absorb it. It will numb it. N-U-M-B. It will numb it. Put this in your head. Extra fast action equals numb feel. Numb feel. It's not extra sensitive, it's extra numb. You don't want extra fast action for anything even remotely associated with sensitivity. Who is going to agree with that statement? Actually, Salt Strong said that. Let me tell you Salt Strong's video. It's kind of funny. Again, good guy. I love Salt Strong. He says, fast action rods are more sensitive and they cast better and they do everything better. The problem is, and this is the kicker, this is what I got kicked out of. The problem is they're more expensive. Hold on now. Could it be that you are spending a lot of money on fast action rods and you never bought a high-end moderate action rod? Well, if you buy a $300 fast action rod and a $50 moderate rod, I don't want to know the brand, anything. Yeah, the $300 fast action rod will have more carbon, will have lighter guides, it will be more sensitive. I believe him. I had a graphite leader. I had the Corto extra fast action rod, and I had the Beleza prototype extra slow action rod. Now I will put up the graphite leader Beleza prototype against any rod he has ever owned, and I want him to tell me which rod is more sensitive. To most of you, I do the same challenge. Try graphite leader Beleza prototype extra slow. Just that rod has no tip. It just bends. Whatever you load it, it will bend in the middle, as parabolic as they go. Somebody tell me this rod is not sensitive. This rod is more sensitive than anything you can buy in United States that is kind of from these big box stores. One last thing, and I'm gonna let you go. One of the biggest confusions is the conflation of the term action with another property of the rods that it just doesn't exist in United States, and that's why it has been made part of action, and that's why the term action has such positive vibe in United States. When you say fast action, such positive vibe. All of you all, when you say fast, you mean goodness. That's a fast rod. Oh yeah, it's a very fast rod. Or the court, it's a fast rod. It means such goodness to you. It's perfect synonym for good and goodness. Fast, good. Slow, that's for kids and crappy. Slow is derogatory. One of the reasons is nobody in United States has mentioned the term recovery. Recovery has been made part of the action. So a lot of you, when you're talking about action, you really mean recovery. But the two things are one in your head. Recovery is not a new term. This is not something I came up with. People were talking about road recovery when I was in socialist Bulgaria. Okay, I did not come up with this. Europe knows about recovery. Japan knows about recovery. United States does not care about recovery. Or here is a recovery. Imagine we put this rod in a vise, okay, vise over here, and there is a vise holding the rod, and we have one moderate, well, let's say we have two different rods. It's not about action. So the rod is in a vise over there, and you come here and you hit the tip, or you just bend it and you release it. How long does it take for the rod to stop shaking and to assume the starting position. This is the recovery. Okay, this is not action. A fast recovery rod, which all of these 99.9% carbon rods, $300 rods, they have immediately fast recovery. A fast recovery rod, you bend it or you cast or whatever you do and immediately stops shaking. It immediately says and gets back there. And cheaper rods with more resin in the blank, less carbon, less elastic, also more heavy. There is more weight in the tip. When you wobble them, they take a long, if you take my Daiwa Presso, the $60 Daiwa Presso, and compare with the Presso Air AGS, two Presso rods, one costs $60, one $300. The Presso is going to take like a whole minute probably to completely stop wobbling. And the AGS, let's take a slow action AGS, the medium light, shake it. AGS will stop shaking immediately. There is a perception that the fast action rods have faster recovery. Theoretically, this is actually true. To a very small extent, but it is true. If you remember in the example that I gave you, the difference between the 6'1" models of the Presso Air AGS is that the 6'1" model has a 1mm tip. The fast action has 1mm tip. The moderate action has 1.2mm tip to make it stiffer, to make it moderate. Well, 1.2mm tip will weigh just a little bit more than the 1mm tip. It's a little bit thicker. So theoretically, you do have a little bit more weight on the top, on the moderate action rods, than you have on the fast action rods. Theoretically, it's true. And yet I find this incredibly misleading, because if we rank the factors that contribute to fast recovery, the action of the rod, the 1.2mm of carbon versus 1mm, the action of the rod is so far down the ranks that it is virtually negligible. What about the guides? Think about the guides. These guides are made of carbon. They weigh nothing. Look at these tiny things. So obviously, if you have micro guides that are made of carbon, it will be very easy for the rod to recover. And the weight of the guides will much exceed the slightly different weight of the tip. This rod is made of 99.9% carbon. But compare this with a blank that is like an ugly stick. Okay? Think about how heavy the ugly stick tip is from here to here. If we disassemble the two rods in the middle, the weight of the entire tip of the ugly stick will be probably triple. I'm not kidding, it will be triple. Get an ugly stick, you weigh this tip, which probably weighs 10 grams, the entire tip here. I don't know if it weighs 10 grams, maybe 5 grams the entire tip. The ugly stick rod will weigh 3 times more the tip. How can you expect the ugly stick to have the same recovery? It's much heavier. It's made of material that's not so elastic on the first place. It feels like it's made of rubber. Well, rubber doesn't have very fast recovery. Fast action rods have some utility. You can use them over a little bit wider range of lures. But extra fast action rods, in my opinion, have no benefits for anything. There is no scenario, I don't care what you are doing, where extra fast action is the right tool. I challenge you, tell me one scenario, one application where the right rod for the application is extra fast action. I mean, half of the rods that are sold in bass fishing are extra fast action. Why? Because of you guys. Because you don't want to buy a slow action rod. It doesn't even exist. Somebody asked me the other day, I hate that when I was doing the review of the Legalis, I told them my favorite model is the 4.8 gear ratio, but I told him this is a Japanese domestic market only model. This model will not be sold in the United States. The guy said, oh man, why we never get the good stuff? Because you don't want to buy it. I mean, it's very simple. If you would buy it, they would make it available in America. Who wants to buy slow gear ratio or slow action rod? Maybe somebody like me came from Europe or Japan. But yeah, this video is finally out there. Thank you for watching. See you soon. Bye bye.